Are you an expecting mom? Or are you a friend or a sister or a mother or a grandmother to someone who is expecting? Well, this conversation is going to be such a blessing to you and to that precious baby. With me today is my dear friend, Ashley Hontz, who is a registered nurse and a lactation consultant, who has many years of experience and so much wisdom to share with us on this topic. So whether it's you or whether you're here to be a support to someone through their breastfeeding journey, I'm so glad that you're here for this conversation.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Seek Holy Living podcast with Christa Svoboda. I am a wife to my wonderful husband, mom to my 5 precious children, and a friend to some amazing moms that I can't wait to introduce to you. Mothering is not a journey meant to be traveled alone. Join me every Monday for a new podcast where you will find hope, joy, and purpose.
Ashley, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Christa. I'm really excited to talk today with you.
Good. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I know kicking off, we're talking about breastfeeding, which I think initially people would think like, oh, this is just a topic for a mom who right now is getting ready to have a baby or just has a new baby. Like she's the only one who it's for. But you would say this is a conversation for a lot more people.
Absolutely. So although this is really good for moms who are pregnant and who are expecting a baby, it's also good for any friends of moms, support people like grandmothers, aunties, and dads. It's really good for dads too, because those are the people that are in a mom's life that are going to help support her through her breastfeeding experience. And so this is super important for them to be involved with so that they can know what their loved one is going to go through with breastfeeding and how to help them. So
that's really special. And I mean, I think everyone who's a mom who's listening to this has their own breastfeeding story,
right?
Whether it was one that led to, nursing exclusively or not, or bottle feeding exclusively. But regardless of what our personal stories are, we'll have friends and sisters whose stories will be different than ours.
Yes.
Because everyone's story, which I think is something that people don't realize that it's not just like a universal experience.
Right.
That's kind of what my expectation was at the first when I was having my first baby.
Right.
But I really appreciate you being here because I think that you experience all these different types of moms' journeys that they've gone through.
Right.
And that you sharing your wisdom will really help us to be able to be a better friend and a better sister and just a better voice of encouragement to the moms in our lives.
Absolutely.
I was thinking about back to when I took my first breastfeeding class. I guess it was only one class. I didn't take a class with my others, but with my first baby.
Right.
And when I went, I didn't even think about bringing someone with me.
Right.
Because I was like, I'm the one nursing the baby. Like, I am the giver of the milk. Like, I'll go by myself.
Yes.
And when I got there, I was the only person who was alone. And I remember at first I was kind of like, oh, I didn't know that I should have brought my husband or my mom along for this journey or someone else. Like, I just figured I was coming, but then I just sat up real proud. I was like, it's fine. You got this by yourself. Yes. And I did for the class, but for the rest of life, like, it was really important to have them along with me. So I love that you started us off that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So breastfeeding, though, is so much more than just the milk that you're giving your baby.
Exactly. So I know we just think of breast milk as breast milk, and it's a way to feed the baby, but there's so many benefits to breastfeeding and so many good things in there. So I just kind of want to take a little bit of time to go over some of the benefits of breastfeeding, because this is the why. This is why moms, might want to choose this breastfeeding route, and why, as like a support person, you may want to encourage and help along that mother in your life who is choosing this. So we're going to talk a little bit. There's so many benefits to breastfeeding. So we're going to start off with a few benefits for babies. Great. So one thing with breast milk is that it has over 200 different components in it that cannot be duplicated by formula. It's just such an amazing living substance. There's antibodies in there. There's immunoglobulins, antivirals, all these good things. There's stem cells in breast milk. And if we know that now they're using stem cells to treat things like cancer and to help with all these different ailments, and we could be giving those stem cells to our babies through our breast milk, what a neat thing that is, you know? And there's so many things that they're still finding in breast milk every day. That is just, we're just going to keep learning new things. So it's just a lot of stuff, and so many things that just can't be duplicated by formula. So just that's one of the things that's so great about breast milk, in terms of its composition. So, and then going along with the nutrition of the breast milk, it's perfect for baby at every age. So let's say as a mother, you give birth prematurely and your baby is born premature at 32 weeks or, you know, somewhere in that range. Your milk is different than if your body was to give birth at, you know, full term at 40 weeks. So there'll be more sodium or more things in there that premature baby specifically needs. And that continues to happen all through the baby's life cycle.
Yeah,
so
because
even
when I've looked at the milk that I pumped when I had like a newborn or like a 1-month-old and I have that frozen milk, it looks completely different,
it is so different
than when I'm pumping with a 1-year-old, whatever I've pumped. Like,
exactly.
What in the world? It's like it's almost like it's a different substance. It's crazy.
And you're right. It changes all the way through the toddler years. It continues to change for that baby as they grow. And breast milk is even different from daytime to nighttime. And
I've heard that too. I always wondered why on the bags, because it says on the pumping bags like time of day.
Yes.
And at first I thought that's a weird thing to put. But then when I found that out, I thought, what?
You have different hormones that are coming out at those certain times to kind of help with circadian rhythm and things like that. And also it's different from whether you have a boy or a girl. Your breast milk changes. So just really interesting things. And then going along with just some other benefits for baby, just moving along, you know, your breast milk takes on whatever flavor that, like, so whatever a mother eats, the breast milk takes on that flavor. So if your family is a family that likes lasagna, when your baby grows up, your baby has been exposed to lasagna and will most likely want to eat lasagna, you know? So it makes them a less picky eater as they grow up, which is really neat. Like, I know for me, I love salmon and asparagus. Most kids are like salmon and asparagus. I don't know about that, but my kids all love salmon and asparagus, you know, and it's something that I ate a lot of that when I was breastfeeding my own kids, you know, and I think that is probably part of the reason why. And you know, formula, it does stay the same flavor, you know, whereas breast milk can change and, you know, it picks up all those little nuances and things. So which is a really neat thing. Another benefit for babies is that babies who breastfeed have fewer ear infections. And that's a huge deal because ear infections are the #1 reason that children under the age of 1 go to the pediatrician.
Wow.
So if we can kind of try to help eliminate that by giving the breast milk, that's just a real positive, not only for the baby, but for the family who has to take time off of work to go to the doctor and all those things. But if just thinking about the anatomy and physiology of why this happens, is, you know, when a baby breastfeeds, they're in a position in such a way that the breast milk doesn't get into the ear canal as easily, right? With formula, because of the propping of the bottle, sometimes the formula can get in, but even if a mom is giving breast milk by bottle, there's still a chance for breast milk to get into the ear canal. The difference is that because breast milk was made by the human body, if breast milk gets into the ear canal, it can be absorbed by the human body. The body goes, I know what this is, and just starts breaking it down and just kind of getting rid of it, whereas formula kind of pools in that ear and it actually fosters the growth of bacteria and can cause more ear infections. That's crazy. So this is I'm just kind of giving some rationale to, we hear these things like, oh, babies have less ear infections, but these are some of the reasons behind this. So just a few other things with babies. They have less sickness overall. So in just, you know, going off of the ear infections, it's because mothers have antibodies and antivirals and immunoglobulins in their breast milk. And from when a mother who is breastfeeding, when she is exposed to any kind of germ, within 20 minutes of her being exposed to that germ, she is already making antibodies to fight that. Wow. Yeah. And usually, you know, I know you do a lot of baby wearing and different things. So usually whatever you're exposed to as a mom, your baby's probably also exposed to, right? Yeah. So it's just something that, you know, our babies are exposed to germs and things. And especially in a time like now where, you know, that could be a concern in the season of a pandemic, breastfeeding is so important for those reasons because we're just really helping those babies' immune systems along. So yeah.
Well, and I remember it's interesting because especially with my first, again, I think that it's a different experience the first time. Right. When you're a first-time mom with a first-time baby. Right. I hadn't been around a mom starting a breastfeeding journey before. Right. I had been around moms in communities where
they already breastfed their babies, and I watched moms nursing their babies, but it was like babies that were a few months old. Or even like the funniness of when you're watching someone nurse like a busy baby, when they're starting to be a crawler and they're like climbing up you in all their positions, right? And they're like climbing on your head while they're nursing. How are you doing that? But I had seen a lot of that, but I had never seen, I mean, and especially too in our culture, like moms are so modest normally about breastfeeding that they're normally all covered while they're nursing. But I had never been around a mom nursing a brand new baby. And so I think I had this expectation. I mean, I went to the class and I had like a nursing bra, and I felt like I had what I took to nurse a baby. Like I have breasts, I have a baby, I can breastfeed a baby. And then I was just floored at how hard it was. That I remember just like crying that it was not as easy as I expected it to be.
Right. And I feel like that is the way with breastfeeding. Like there is this expectation that because it's natural that it should be easy. And it's so not easy. For some women it is. And you know, and that's so wonderful for them. But for most women,
and I would wish that on anyone. And I have had friends that way who I hear their story and they're like, oh yeah, we nursed. I'm like, that was all? That was your journey? Is that we said yes? Like that's almost like, it doesn't really seem fair.
And there's going to be some really hard times. So, you know, in the beginning, and that's why just dabbling back into the benefits, just a few more things I want to highlight with moms. You know, just there's also benefits for moms too, because sometimes we think all about the baby's going to get the benefits, but thinking about how it affects moms as well. We know that breastfeeding helps reduce the risk of hormonally driven cancers. So breast cancer, ovarian cancer, things like that. It helps reduce the risk of osteoporosis, rheumatoid arthritis, just a lot of things that just down the line, not only in just their near future, but years and decades down the road, just this process of breastfeeding and what our bodies were designed to do really has a lot of benefits for mom. And one that's good for mom and baby is the bonding time.
It makes me slow down in such a different way.
And just it makes you enjoy. And it's something that, you know, it happens both on a physical level, but also on this hormonal level. So every time that a woman breastfeeds, when the milk lets down for the baby, it releases oxytocin, and oxytocin is called the love hormone. So that feeling when you first fell in love, those butterfly feelings, that was your oxytocin going just firing all over the place, right? So if we're stimulating that oxytocin as often as baby's feeding, 8 to 12 times in 24 hours on a level that we don't even know, we are bonding with our babies and creating that love hormone. Now, for moms who cannot breastfeed, this can still happen. So for, let's say a mom, you know, she's tried everything. She's really tried to breastfeed and she's discouraged because she said, you know what, it just didn't work for me. Bonding can still happen with skin to skin time. So we know that when a baby's bare chest is on a mom's bare chest, that also increases oxytocin and creates that bonding. So that's just something I want to throw out there for all those moms.
Skin to skin.
Yeah, that skin to skin is so important. And then just a few more benefits for families, because I just got to throw these out there. But you know, just looking at your family dynamic and how much you spend on different things, the nursery and all this stuff, it can add up. But with breastfeeding, it's a lot less expensive. It's a lot more convenient too. You don't have to worry about doing dishes and buying all the extra stuff. You know, you may buy a pump, you know, or something like that, but you're not having to spend all the extra.
And even the pump, I was surprised how many people their insurance actually covered a pump
you're
for
so
them.
right. Yeah, you're so right. So that's something to definitely look into. Pumps are most of the times should be covered by insurance.
And if your insurance doesn't, I also asked for friends, like, does anyone have an extra pump? And then you couldn't buy all of the like tubing and stuff like that from a like I couldn't just buy it easily online, but I found out that through the hospital that I was able to buy all of the tubing accessories to be able to make it a lot more affordable for me to start.
Absolutely. And you can also buy it in pieces just like that. So all of these things together, I just kind of want to, you know, that's something I love to share, just some of the benefits. Please feel free, mamas, or, you know, support, you know, any support people out there to check out more benefits to breastfeeding, because these are our why. These are why.
You have to have a solid why to do anything.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
In the hard times, in the middle of the night when the baby's cluster feeding all night and you're exhausted and, you want to know, why am I doing this? And why am I going through this hard thing? And sometimes just something to keep in mind is sometimes the hardest things in life are the best things.
Absolutely.
So just something, something to think about. So
yeah. And I think for me, having the support of the people who I knew were there for me really made a difference too, with like my mom being there and my husband like to help, because it wasn't easy.
Right.
My start was really hard. And even like going back to the breastfeeding clinic, like multiple times, and my mom being willing to come with me. But if I hadn't been willing to reach out to her to be like, Mom, would you come? Or like, would you help me with this? That was really, really important.
Really crucial.
And for me, the biggest hurdles were really at the beginning. And I think, would you agree that that's normally the case?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's tackle a little bit of those hurdles, because there are a few things I see very commonly, a lot of common questions or concerns from just my patients at the hospital. One thing I see is moms feel like that their breast should be full right away, and that there should just be milk kind of spraying out and just ready to go. And it just doesn't work like that.
Well, their tummies are so little still.
Yes. So that's something that's really interesting. So I like to tell moms what to expect, because they're expecting to have these right after the birth, to have these large breasts that are just full of milk. That's not going to happen. So it actually takes about 72 hours before a mom will start to feel that her breasts are getting fuller and heavier, and before the milk starts flowing. And this is really good for a lot of grandmothers to know too, because our grandmothers, especially, their culture was not a breastfeeding culture. Mostly it was a formula feeding culture. And that's no fault of their own. That's just what was normal at the time. So they have a lot of misconceptions and a lot of ideas that really aren't true. So like one is, your milk's not flowing right away. That means you don't have the milk.
Oh, wow.
And that's not true. So one thing I like to kind of go over with moms, like you said, Christa, is their tummies are so small, especially in the first couple days. Their tummy the first day is only 5 milliliters, which is the size of a teaspoon.
Wow.
So
a teaspoon.
Yeah. And if we think about our tummies, if our tummy was that small, we would have to eat so many times in our day, right?
Yes.
And just kind of
little bits so
all day
often.
long, right?
Yeah.
So this is normal, and it's really amazing. I get really excited about this, but I just think of the way that we are designed and the way that we are created.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way that the mom and baby's interaction is with the way that milk is produced in those first couple days is like a front row seat to God's amazing creation. And so let me kind of elaborate on that. With the tummy being so small, this new baby too, they come out not knowing how to eat, right?
Right. That was another thing that hit me when I was like, whoa, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
And they don't know what they're doing.
They don't know what they're doing, right? So this little baby has to learn how to suck, swallow, breathe. Suck, swallow, breathe without choking, right? And so the body produces small amounts of colostrum the first 3 days. And that colostrum, it's small drops, but it's very rich milk. It's very, very high in calories. And so our bodies were designed to do that so that our babies could learn how to suck, swallow, breathe with small amounts and high rich milk, so that by the time the volume is really increased and flowing, they are able to know and able to handle that extra volume. So it's just a really neat thing. So the
babies have to figure that out, and your milk has to start coming in.
Yes. And then on top of that, so the next hurdle that I often see is that women don't know that their baby is going to be doing something called cluster feeding.
Yes. I remember that being just a shocker for me.
Right. So cluster feeding, in case anyone doesn't know, is where the baby feeds several hours or several feedings in a row.
It's like it just finished. I just finished nursing you.
Yeah.
I laid you down. I changed your diaper. I got myself kind of cleaned up again. And then they're fussing again. Yep. It's like, you can't be hungry. You just ate.
It's like this all day buffet for them, right?
Yes.
They're just like going for it. So this is very normal. And so I want parents to know, not only moms, but dads, because dads are often the ones that are going to be there those first 3 days helping.
And they're the only voice you're hearing, right?
Yes. And they're kind of going, why is baby feeding so much? So I'm gonna lay out a little bit of that information for that. So the cluster feeding, when a baby's first born, they have a job to do, and they know that the more that they stimulate the breast or suck at the breast, the more milk mom makes, right? So they're essentially, sometimes I say, just putting money in the bank, saying, I want a lot of milk from a couple days from now, so I'm going to work hard And then by the time that third day comes, usually it's about 72 hours after baby's born. That's when that volume really increases and they go, oh, my job is done. I can kind of settle down a little bit. But what also parents don't know is that a lot of times this cluster feeding happens in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And it's like the total opposite of what we want to do, right? We want to sleep in the middle of the night, and this baby is up all night. And so there's a couple reasons why this happens. The first reason is that we have this great hormone called prolactin, and it makes breast milk. Well, the peak level of prolactin in the human body is around 2 a.m. So guess what? That baby goes, ooh, that hormone's really high at 2 a.m. I am going to work harder at that time. And so that's why babies tend to cluster feed at 12 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Is right during that time because they're taking advantage of that milk-making hormone.
I'll have to remember that.
Yeah. And I don't know if you can speak to this, Christa, but another reason too is that babies generally like to kick more at nighttime.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you feel that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I always just thought it's because that's when I slow down.
Yeah. Yes, it is true. And so you're exactly right. So during the day, as you walk around doing your normal day to day, your baby is just like, this is great. I'm lulled to sleep. I'm comfortable. I'm like in a hammock, right? The baby's just hanging out. As soon as you lay down at nighttime, he's like, okay, mom's asleep. I'm going to start moving around. I'm going to, just tell her hello.
Like a party.
When I'm here. Yeah, it's a party in here. And so usually whenever your baby was active the most is when they're going to want to eat the most too, which typically is at nighttime.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Yeah, but something I just want parents to know. So.
Yes. So I know that this is a whole journey. Like breastfeeding is not just something that is like an arrival point.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Okay. So breastfeeding is a journey. It's something that you get to make, every mom gets to make their own journey though. Okay. So one thing that is super important at the beginning of any journey, we need to kind of educate ourselves and go, okay, what am I expecting of this journey? What are my goals for this journey? And how am I going to prepare for this journey? Right. So
I think like you said too, like that it's your journey.
Yes.
It's not everyone else's journey.
Yeah.
So like putting aside, what does culture say that I'm supposed to be doing? Or how am I supposed to be going about this?
Right.
Like, no, this is actually, and even like, what does my family say? What is their expectation?
Yes.
But you know what? This is our journey. And it's kind of a first step into taking ownership of part of your parenting roles as the mom.
Right.
What do I want? Why do I want it? And how am I going to go about this?
Absolutely. That's so true. And so one thing that's super important, I think, for parents in the beginning is to take some kind of class. Take a breastfeeding class, get educated about it, read a book. There's some wonderful books out there about breastfeeding. Come alongside a friend who's experienced and just say, hey, what was your breastfeeding experience? And that's so helpful because what a mom will probably learn from her friend is that maybe it wasn't so easy in the beginning. And like you said in the beginning, a lot of times we see these mothers who are breastfeeding, but they're breastfeeding older babies that they've already gone through all the hurdles. So they make it look easy, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure to talk to our friends and just kind of get what their experiences were and kind of see what happened with them. And that's going to help us in the beginning of our journey too. Just knowing, okay, what did they experience? What is something that I can expect and how to move forward from there? And just, with anything, you set yourself up for success when you educate yourself. So that's just a huge piece.
I feel like it's like giving yourself tools in your toolbox.
Exactly. That's a great way to explain that.
Yeah. And knowing too that the education doesn't end just because baby's here. Yeah. That's also important because I kind of, again, like I said, like I expected that it would just work, but then having the support of, the lactation consultant afterwards to be able to go to and say, okay, what am I doing here? How can you help me with this was just made a world of difference.
And that's a great point too, because you really need to surround yourself with good support, and that could be, like you said, a lactation consultant. It could be a nurse. It could be a midwife. It could be a pediatrician. Yeah. Those are all healthcare providers that are really versed in helping with breastfeeding. However, it can also be your friend or your sister or your mom or
and
your
it
aunt.
does take asking though, because I think like I would be really hesitant if like my sister or my sister-in-laws, any of them, if they were struggling, I wouldn't want to have it seem like I was like, oh, well, Christa thinks she knows what she's doing because she's nursed 4 kids. And, I just wouldn't want it to come across that way ever. But if they just asked and said like, okay, did you ever experience anything like this? Just the question would just open up the door for me to feel like I could say,
okay, yes, let me help. Here's what helped me. These are the literal items I use that helped me with breastfeeding. And this is what I would recommend you could try. And just also knowing too, like surrounding yourself with people in that season who are going to be advocating for you, and rather than like being an eye of judgment on you.
100%. And that's so huge. And so as you think of your support people too, think of people who are not only going to help you with the breastfeeding, but who's going to help you run errands.
Yeah.
Who can help keep your house clean and watch the other
let
kids.
Them. Like that's the other thing. I think we think we should be able to do it all.
Right.
And no one should.
Right. It's okay and I feel like, moms kind of think sometimes that it's not okay to ask for help, but it's so okay to ask for help. It means you're human. It means that, you're trying and you need help. That's okay. I feel like sometimes if we think that if we ask for help, we somehow feel failure. Absolutely. We somehow feel like, gosh, you know what? Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Or what if they think I'm not a naturally gifted mom because I don't know how to latch my baby? And this is just something that, our culture, the way that our culture used to be, when women in a town would have a baby, all the other women in town would come over and they would help her. Wow. Someone would hold the baby. Someone would cook the meals. Someone would help with the latching. And we just have a culture now that's so distant that we've lost a lot of that.
Well, and even worse, like we see on, you see, I think sometimes across social media, it's like, well, that mom's able to do it all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you think you should be able to.
You just feel like you should be able to do it all. It's like kind of like that, that Pinterest perfect culture where you should be able to do all the things. And it's just not. It's just not, you just can't sometimes, and that's okay. Yeah. So.
Well, and I've found too that when I ask someone for help, it's almost like it opens the door in the relationship for it to be reciprocal. And I want to be that friend who can be the help for someone, but I can't always be the one giving the help if I'm not willing to receive the help. And so I think asking even something simple, like asking a friend, would you mind setting up a meal train for us?
Yes.
That's something, the friend who's setting it up, it's easy for them to do.
Right.
But then they're opening the door for how many other people to be willing to step in and help.
Yes.
But if you don't ask, then no one's going to know to do it for you.
And I'm so glad you said that, Christa, because a big part of a mother's journey after she has her baby, she is meant to recover. Birth, pregnancy is a big ordeal, right? And so she needs time to recover, and she needs time to bond with her baby and get to know her baby, and time to learn breastfeeding. Because breastfeeding, again, is not always easy, and it's just like...
And it's different with every child.
It's different with every child. Yeah. And, sometimes like in the beginning, it's kind of like riding a bike. At first it feels awkward. Where do I put my hand? Where do I hold the baby? How do I do this? And just giving moms time to learn about their baby and learn how to breastfeed is wonderful. And so ways that we can do that is by coming alongside other moms, with meal trains and with ways to support her, so she doesn't have to focus on, oh my goodness, what am I going to make for dinner? I need to do all these things, but I also need to feed my baby. She can just focus on recovering and feeding her baby. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, if you could leave these moms listening to this, whether they're like currently having a baby, or if they have friends who are having babies, or if it's being shared with a dad, if you could leave them with a word of hope or encouragement to close out, what would it be?
Absolutely. Breastfeeding is just such a wonderful thing. It is really a privilege, and it's something that, kind of like pregnancy, no one else gets to do that. You are the one that gets to feed that baby, which is such a neat thing, right? But as much as I believe in breastfeeding from both the educational standpoint and from a personal standpoint, because I breastfed my own kids, I also know that breastfeeding is not for everybody. So regardless of how you choose to feed your baby, the biggest thing that any mother can do, especially when they're pregnant, or any support person can do, is get educated. So learn about the process, and just advocate for yourself. And whatever decision you decide on how to feed your baby, that is your decision, and you just be confident in that. And then just remember that regardless of how you choose to feed your baby, whether it's exclusive breastfeeding, whether it's pumping and giving a bottle, whether it's formula feeding, that you, no matter what, are the best mom for your kid. So,
and that's just the beginning of a beautiful step in parenting.
Right, 100%. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Ashley had so much wisdom to share with us today, and I know there are so many women who would be encouraged by it. So if you don't already, Follow me on Instagram at Seek Holy Living, and this week I'll be sharing some of the wisdom that Ashley shared with us today in this podcast so that you can share it there with your friends. You also can follow Ashley at her website, Beautiful Mommyhood, and that's BEYOU, Tiful Mommyhood. If you want to hear more from Ashley, you can go back to our conversation about how to be a healthy mom. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss any of our weekly conversations. And check out our show notes below, where I have links to the resources mentioned on the podcast. I release a new podcast every Monday and additional content at seekholyliving.com, including a video of this conversation and a deeper dive into all things mom. Also, be sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Seek Holy Living for more fun and conversation. If this was an encouragement to you, please share it with your friends. And join us next week as we reflect on how to prepare our hearts for Easter.